Games Inbox. Will the next general be the end of consoles? Metro News, 135, 6M shares. The Morning Inbox thinks that banning loot boxes would be a good idea for everyone, as one reader has his own theories about Nintendo's E3. To join in with the discussions yourself, email. I know video game analysts aren't the most reliable types at the best of times, but weren't they all convinced last general that this general, that we're currently in, would be the last one for consoles? That after that, so will the next general be the last one? Or the next? I am not complaining, but I do wonder why companies are so keen to get to streaming, considering it has so many teething problems. I realize it's GC, you're right, but that's why Microsoft has been so keen to push Game Pass. I was thinking the exact same thing about Ghost Recon Breakpoint, in terms of it looking like the Terminator. Unfortunately, I do wonder what the point of the Tom Clancy name is at this point. Would these games, ID be all over a Terminator future war game, but another military shooter in a jungle setting? I might be interested. I am going to be really curious to see how that John Wick game does when it comes out. To me, a mix of each. I've got to give kudos to the film company that let it happen though. John Wick isn't, to me that's a great idea, and I wish they'd do the same thing with other things like Star Wars and Game of Thrones. Maybe if John Wick, email your comments too. I was relieved to see that the comments about the Mortal Kombat 11 PTSD story were more sympathetic than they have been so far. I think, reading up on it some more, I came across this which says NetherRealm are looking into things and have given the whole studio the weekend off. If that's being seen, and that's ignoring how gross some of these fatalities. I hadn't played the. I am going to have to say I have no problem with loot boxes being banned either. They add nothing to it. When a right-wing US politician has the same concerns as an ordinary UK gamer, you know something's got to be wrong. Although given how, so E3 is next month, and with Microsoft recently acquiring a ton of new studios, wouldn't it be a real good time to announce the next general Xbox? And with these studios, this year they will be showing off a ton of new games, but if they announce the next general Xbox either this year or next year, I am sure this will go down really well and give Sony a real run for its money. The one thing Microsoft, what is everyone expecting this year, and are you expecting something big this year or next? Gazette be rotten gamertag. GC, although they're likely to strongly allude to it, and perhaps even announce some basic specs, it's unlikely that Microsoft or Sony will officially unveil their new consoles until after Christmas, for fear of impacting sales at the busiest time of the year. Apart from maybe, looks like Nintendo has a pretty busy E3 coming up just with the already announced games. Knowing that their 2019 has been a non-event for them so far, and they need to show that they have a lot coming through for the rest of the year. And as long as they're, although I have to admit I am most looking forward to Luigi's Mansion 3, as I loved the second game. I just hope it does. You know what I always look for in my video games? A story written by. I can't believe how genuinely excited I am to see Detective Pikachu this weekend. I mean, I have grudged with Pokémon Detective Pikachu out this week. The subject for this weekend's inbox was fairly obvious. What's your favorite video game movie? What movie based on an existing video game franchise is your favorite and why? Is it a good movie? Why do you think so many movies get things wrong, and what advice would you give on upcoming movies or your own dream projects? And do you think email your comments to. The small print new inbox updates appear twice daily, every weekday morning and afternoon. Readers' letters are. You can also submit your own 500 to 600 word 4-player viewer features at any time, which if used will be shown in the next available weekend slot. You can also leave your comments below, and don't forget to Entity code excerpt. Share your results.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.